What's up, y'all? Jonathan Weisman, JweisMarketing.com, and we are coming at you with another episode of the Houston Entrepreneurs Podcast. And today, we got some dope-ass entrepreneurs with us. We've been doing this all day, and we're continuing to bring you some live action. I got Corey McMullen in the house today. He is with a company called Urban Organics. It's actually dope. I've been looking at it online. This is something y'all definitely need to check out. Website is urbanorganicsonline.com. We will post all that stuff in the comments so you can find them. Corey, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing well, sir.
Well, thank you for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for inviting me. This is it came out of the blue, like I said.
Yeah, it did. Well, we're going to dive right into it. First, tell me what Urban Organics is, and then go back kind of to the beginning, how you got started, and we'll just kind of work through it from there. So what is Urban Organics?
Urban Organics is an edible landscaping and urban farming company. We're a landscape design build company. We walk our clients through the entire process of creating a space to produce food wherever they are, whether it's their home, their office wellness program, a restaurant, schools. We build gardens and make it easy for people to grow food.
So you build the gardens in residences or residences or fucking A, dude. I can't talk today. You build gardens in residences and it's edible.
Yeah.
Like they plant their own fruits and vegetables and they can just go out back and grab it and eat it.
With our guidance and kind of direction on the design, and then if they want to sign up with us for the long term, we walk them through the whole process. So they're in the garden with us through some of our visits, and they're learning as we're going through the garden. They see what we see, so they have a trained pair of eyes that can tell them, all right, so the leaves on your tomato are yellowing from the bottom up because of this, or from the top down because of this. It's just it helps people get over the hurdles of growing their own food, because
sure.
I'm sure when you do any research online, you know how overwhelming it can get with information, like in 2 searches, and you're just like, okay, screw it, I'm done. I don't want to mess with it.
Yeah. I've gone into that deeply. I'm a prepper, and so I have looked into it. I have bought the seeds that are sitting in a freezer. I've gone through a lot of research about being self-sufficient back in the day, and so gardening was actually one of the things that I was looking into. And as you just said, when I even started to tiptoe into it, it just got so overwhelming that I was like, fuck it, I'll just starve.
Yep.
So how did you get into this business? How long have you been doing it?
I learned horticulture in prison, actually. So
real cool.
I spent my 20s paying for stupid stuff I did in my early 20s.
I think that's a great fucking story. And thank you for sharing that.
It's the first place I've actually told it, in a public setting like that.
Yeah, well, I think it's important because a lot of people come from rough backgrounds. I know, I shared a little bit with you before this.
Yeah.
Didn't have to do any hard time like that, but I've been locked up 12, 15 times when I was younger doing stupid shit. A lot of friends that were locked up for many, many years. And, it's not the shit that you go through, it's what you do afterwards.
Right.
And if you were able to take that and your time, and I don't know your exact story yet, but if you can turn that into something amazing that's helping people, who gives a fuck?
Right.
That's how I feel about it anyway. I mean, there's plenty of other people, and obviously when it comes to culture and jobs and hiring, there's a lot of people that don't like that. But I am a big believer in second chances, rehabilitation, and learning from your experiences and trying to grow upon that. So, and speaking of growing, that's exactly what your business model does.
That's what we do. We teach people how to grow food.
So where did you take that? Did you take that in prison?
Yeah, I took the horticulture class in prison. That pardon the pun, but that planted the seed. And
I'm sure there's a lot of puns in this business.
Oh, there's tons.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, and as a new dad, it's fun trying to use them as much as I can.
Well, that's cool. Do you have a little boy or girl?
A little girl, almost a year old.
Awesome. Congratulations on that.
Well, thank you.
That's amazing. I got 4 kids, so
every day's amazing.
It is. Yeah, on this side of the dirt, or I guess this side of the walls as well.
Either one.
Yeah, it's about the same, isn't it? All right, so you're in prison. You get out of prison. You start educating yourself on this. Do you follow up with education out of that, or are you just coming out the gates blast and starting to plant stuff?
Well, I went through my whole journey through the horticulture game was I did the horticulture class in prison for a year and a half, and then was transferred to another unit and I was welding and doing maintenance and little odd jobs inside the prison on the maintenance crews. But I got accepted to a program called the Prison Entrepreneurship Program.
Real cool.
And I rocketed through that, and this business plan was actually formed inside. That was my business plan competition or my business plan presentation for the competition within Prison Entrepreneurship Plan or program.
So that program was at the second location you were at.
Third. It was actually probably the sixth total location during
They
the trip
moved you
around
around.
Texas. Yeah. Well, I tell some people that I spent the first few years still trying to open brick walls with my forehead. So finally got to Huntsville, and one of the older, it used to be Death Row before they moved it over to Livingston, which is where I started my trip, is the unit that houses Death Row. And then I wound up winding it down on the downhill slope of things, and the guys in the cells above me, the cellies in the cell above me, had 89 years locked up combined between the two of them, man. And that's kind of when I realized that they would always have a place for me, and if I was going to do life on the installment plan or get out and get my shit together. And this is what I did. I went through the prison entrepreneurship program, which is it's a 6 month, and well, it's a year-long program, but it's 6 months of it is character development up front. Back end is 6 months of business development and
planning everything that comes with it,
softening the hard edges of prison and making you presentable to society again, in a sense. But it's all kind of, it's driven by the program. It's a nonprofit organization, but it's peer driven inside. So it's guys that have gone through the program that still have time to do. They kind of oversee things with the outside help from the executives in the program.
Gotcha. Well, let's fast forward, because you graduated from that. You obviously got out at some point.
Yep.
And how long was it after you got out that you decided to start this business?
About 3 years. I had a couple of hiccups. Started out, fell on my face, and then I just did a bunch of free gardens for friends and friends of family and all this type of stuff. And
so really you started out immediately.
Pretty
I mean,
much.
whether it turned into a business model, we can figure that out in a little bit, but early on stages, you get out and you dive right into it.
Within a year.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And so was it for fun at first? Was it a hobby, or was it intentional to actually be a business model for you?
It was intentional to figure out the business model and figure out if it would work and how much labor goes into, installing gardens and all that kind of stuff, and just to learn it, because up until that point, it
was all literature.
It was all, well, in the prison, they have the horticulture program is hands-on. It's
real cool.
Yeah, they've got greenhouses and you do all kinds of stuff, but there's no application of it afterward that they're actually.
It doesn't continue outside the prison.
They don't let you outside the prison to go do lands places, so they don't really want to spend the money on landscaping them.
Yeah.
So the practice wasn't continued while I was in the next 2 years or 3 years that I was locked up, and so I had to kind of sharpen the iron again and figure out if it was something that I wanted to do at all. And the more I did it, the more I liked it, and the more and more I kind of started seeing the market adapt to it. I knew there was already a competitor around, but they weren't only focused on edibles. They were doing a lot of natives and pollinator gardens and stuff like that. So, I mean, I'm not perfect. I still let certain clients down because I'm spread too thin on the maintenance side. So anybody watching or listening, if you know your way around a garden, I'm hiring gardeners. So yeah, it's just a lesson every day.
Real cool. Well, we'll definitely drop your information at the end so people can get a hold of you.
Sure.
And gardeners or people looking to get into the business. Sounds like a dope program. I mean, I wish I'd have learned or had a way to learn a lot of that. And if that's a service that you provide where you actually go out and set up the service and then I guess kind of babysit or educate and show people how to do it over a certain course of time.
Yes, sir. That's exactly how it works. It's the same business model as a landscape construction company with a maintenance background, with a maintenance side to it as well. So the maintenance is basically in the garden with our client, not every time, because their schedules are always haywire. But if we're going to be in the garden on Tuesday mornings at, from 9 to 10:30 in the morning, then the homeowner always has an open invite. But we try to get at least 1 to 2 visits a month if we're on that program with them.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Hands-on experience, training, learning.
There's always something new to learn. Just anything that you take on, especially, you're always learning something new about it, whether it's business or gardening or any of it.
That's life, right?
Yeah.
So finances, to get started, what did you do? How'd you get funded? How much money did you start this business with? The first question is, how much time is it going to take me to do this? How much am I going to invest? Where am I going to get this from? Where am I going to get that from? What was it like for you, and what were the thoughts running through your head? How am I going to start this business? How am I going to get funded? How did that plan out for you?
I'm still asking those questions.
Which is fair.
Yeah,
very fair.
I'm still asking those questions because I started it with nothing. I just sold a project and then sold another project.
And just used the money from selling that project
to buy
half down to go get what you needed and
buy tools that I wasn't having to borrow from my dad or whatever. And,
I love it.
And just keep on going.
That's the American dream, right?
It's been slow and painful, but yeah, it's.
How long you been at it now?
I really started back with a new vengeance in 2013. So 7 years. I've been doing it full time for a little over 2 years now. Right after Harvey, I quit a job that I hated, that I had taken because I jumped out and tried to do the landscaping gig all on my own with no experience, and I fell flat on my face and had to scramble and find a job before they kick you out of the house.
Yeah, before mortgage due.
And so I took a retail job that taught me a lot, but I hated it. It was just friggin' miserable all the time. And
it's one of the things I preach to our followers and fans all the time is it doesn't matter how old you are. You can decide at any point to quit what you're doing and start to do something you love.
Last year was hard. I mean, I took a lot of punches last year and got beat down, and that you just got to keep getting back up. And I didn't realize it. And I was going through, the peaks and the valleys of owning owning a business and being a new dad and being a husband and trying to do everything right and always fucking it up, and then being spread too thin for projects because you got too many balls in the air at once. And I closed out December with my ass on fire and rolled right into January for the first 10 days and was getting more and more aggravated with myself because I hadn't sat down and like contemplated in earnest my goals for the year or even written anything down by that point. And I saw the end of the year finishing just like 19 did. And I was, I guess, commiserating with a really good friend of mine, a guy that I've been friends with for over 20 years. And he was like, and he started commiserating first and letting it out. And we were just sitting there like, bro, that's me right now. I hate it,
Yeah.
And so, if there's anybody out there that's like starting a business or even up to their neck in the shit of the business, I mean, it sucks right now, but there's always something around the corner. You just gotta. There's
something right around the corner, and it's a lot better than what it could be.
Yeah.
For many of them, and you're very early on in your business venture.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, basically, you're 2 years on. You've been doing it 7 years. Side project for the first 5.
It's a hobby that paid me money.
It was a hobby that made a little bit of extra change, other than your main gig. At what point? Okay. Well, my next question was: at what point did you already throw your hands up and say, "Fuck it, I'm going to go all in"? But that was Harvey, you said.
Yeah, it was after Harvey. I was already decided that I was just going to say, "Fuck it, I'm all in." But then Harvey rolled through, and I was like, it delayed things by about 3 or 4 weeks for me. But then I got an opportunity to go to work with a friend of mine that was doing contractor work at the time and kind of overseeing projects. And so I jumped ship from the other job that I had and went off with him, and one thing. It just didn't work out. He spread himself too thin after Harvey and went out with a bang. And
I think a lot of people did after Harvey.
Yeah, I think he got a little too ahead of himself, and just anyway. That's a long story short.
Yeah, we'll have him on the show another day.
Yeah.
But yeah, after Harvey, so you went ahead and just said, all right, I'm going to go ahead and try this thing that, I've been doing for the last 7 months as a hobby. I'm going to make it out of a business.
Yeah, I had a website up, and my brother built my website, and I mean, it's geared for catching fish, and I'm in such a niche in the landscaping gig that I don't fall in with all of the other chatter. So when people find me and they have used certain, combinations of keywords or whatever, they're a pretty warm lead. They're looking for something specific that I provide.
Yeah.
At that point, it's on me to let them know everything that I can provide. It's not just a raised bed. We're a full service landscaping company. We just did a complete redo for a lady over here in Memorial that was just getting back into their house after having that rebuilt after Harvey, and their backyard was a construction zone and storage
So you
area.
do full-fledged landscaping.
Yeah.
It's just your niche happens to be that you like to build self-sufficient gardens.
It has a purpose, man.
It absolutely does.
The
I think it's
landscape
amazing.
has a purpose other than just sucking a ton of money out of your pocket every year and washing down the drain and screwing up the ecology behind it.
Yeah. I love it. Was there, it's, and I know what you said earlier, was there ever a aha moment in the last 2 years from launching the business to now where it kind of relieved a little bit of pressure when you said, okay, this is actually going to be a legit business model, or I can make a career out of this, I can do this full time? I'm sure there was some moments that were just scary as shit along the way.
Yeah, every day is still kind of scary.
Have you had any relief yet? Has there been a certain moment or landed a couple big accounts and it's like, all right, this is actually going to work?
No. Yes and no. I always know that it's going to work. But I've been just shagging ass trying to get everything done and always chasing the next dollar, but not in the sense that like I actually gotta have the dollar because my bills got to get paid.
But you're not chasing it for the money. You're chasing it because you're passionate about it.
Yeah, it's something that I believe in, and I think your lawn and the thought behind the lawn was great 50 years ago or whatever, but it's horse shit now.
Tell me about that. Educate me. What was the purpose of having a lawn back in the day?
It was people spreading out, just getting space in between each other. There was really no purpose behind the lawn. All of your grass is hybridized and farmed. It's not, it's not stuff that you find out in nature in the middle of a meadow or whatever. You have a great St. Augustine lawn. It's all manicured, highly controlled. And in that time when suburbia became a thing in the 50s and they were rolling out lawns, they were also rolling out, chemical pesticides. That was the whole better living
fertilizers, pesticides,
all of it. It was the better living through chemistry era, and that's granted it got us to where we are today with things, but it's time to go back and kind of look at the way things went way back when not 7 out of every 12 people have cancer and everything
exactly
else.
It's the same thing with the food pyramid.
Yeah.
Back in the day when I was a little kid in school, I remember seeing that little triangle with eggs and milk at the very top of it and meat and then I don't even remember
grains and starches and everything else, and then veggies were over on one side. It's
completely wrong.
Yeah.
And obviously we're finding out that all kinds of shit is wrong, but that's where I won't even get into the foods and all the shit that's in them that's killing people. You were talking about business and it's still, you're still trying to make it happen. What is it that you're currently doing right now to generate business? How do you get leads? How do you get business?
So there's several things that I'm focusing on this year with my business. Currently it's just my website, a little bit of word of mouth. I don't do any like hard social campaigns or anything like that. I just try to keep up with posting on a regular basis and keeping people engaged. But it's hard, when you wear every single hat and basically this year my focus is to find myself the breathing room and get myself out of the field and only acquiring new projects and building the back end of the business. I mean, up until last week, I had just a basic Excel spreadsheet for me to price my projects, and I was stepping on my own toes and taking money out of my wallet for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Just because I had missed a certain column in overhead, and I wasn't factoring in the fact that, you know, there's things that have to be done, and it's not just going in, you know, I'm not just taking the money out of the company and paying my bills. It has to go somewhere, but I didn't know what I didn't know at the time.
Sure.
And I was going through other stuff, and I don't know. You again, it comes down to the information overload. If you don't know something, like I don't know how to build the type of spreadsheet that I needed to do it. So I was trying to do everything on paper and keep up with it.
I think you're speaking to every single person that's, you know, in the infancy stage of starting a business or thinking about starting a business. So, and I appreciate you, you know, being candid and transparent and sharing that with us and the audience as well. That was me when I got into my first business. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing.
Yeah. You just had a passion. You were excited about it.
It was paper and pen, and it was like, I think people like what I'm selling, and we can probably make this work. Yeah. And then you jump on that roller coaster and you figure it out from there. I mean, it's absolutely crazy, the ups and downs to it. And I want to jump more into the business and more into the actual products and services that you offer and learn more about it. Last question I have on the business side of it is, if there was somebody looking to get into this business for a business aspect, the organic side of things, into gardening, even in landscape, what is something that you would suggest to them? What would be a good bit of advice that you could provide them so that they don't have to deal with some of the hardships that you've gone through?
I think that's hard for me to like narrow down into like just one episode. Sure. You know, I mean, obviously, all of the old adages that people say, like, you got to know your numbers or you don't know your shit, you know, and you might know your numbers, but if you don't know accounting and what those numbers are actually telling you and how to find your margins and what, you know, your total percent of revenue is and in each aspect of your business, I mean, all of this stuff was just like light shown on me 2 weeks ago when I first started. And I had gone through basic things before, like, but it wasn't taught in a manner that I understood it very well at the time. And I'm better at making stuff and talking to people and selling things than I am at
administrative stuff.
Yeah. So, I mean, I play to my strengths, and I have a natural, I guess, tendency to always do that, even at the detriment of other things, obviously.
I get it. Well, let's start talking about your strengths and what you're passionate about, which is the actual gardens. I noticed on your website, again, that's urbanorganicsonline.com, that it seemed that all of the gardens were above ground, or I saw them attached to fences or sidewalls.
Right.
Tell me about that. Why do you do that above elevated? Is that called anything specific?
Raised bed gardening, vertical gardening.
Okay.
The vertical is the ones on the walls that you've seen.
Okay.
Raised beds. Anytime you put something to contain soil on top of the ground,
there's a raised bed.
That's a raised bed, as long as it's got an open bottom and all that good stuff. Otherwise, if it's a solid bottom, it's a planter.
And what is the benefit of doing that?
In our climate, we control drainage. We control the composition of the soil. I don't know if you've ever slung a shovel in Houston, but right under your grass is
hard ass
clay.
Dirt. Yeah,
it's this nasty black gumbo clay, and you can't grow anything in it. You have to amend the soil, and that takes time. So for quick implementation of a garden and control over the structure of your soil and where it's coming from and who it's sourcing, and the fertilizers that are going into it, and our biggest thing with 40 plus inches of rain every year, or I forget how many inches, but every month we feels like we're always, 3 days out of 5 it's always raining.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing is clay soils don't drain very well. They're already saturated with water, and then they just hold water for the longest time.
Gotcha.
So it's drainage and control of the soil.
controlling the ecosystem, the
Basically.
environment.
Yeah, you create it.
What is the the top producers that you plant? What do you see a lot of, or what grows well in this Texas climate with the weather changing every day? It's 50 degrees one day, 100 the next, raining the next.
Yeah, it's
What kind of struggles are you seeing with that in Houston?
It's seasonality of things, and knowing the biggest key for new gardeners is knowing your planting times and knowing when things are supposed to go in the ground versus what's on the shelf at Home Depot or even at some of the small mom and pop nurseries, which, by the way, if you want to get into gardening, don't get any of your plants or trees or fruit trees or any of that at Home Depot. Stick with your local companies. They're sourcing things from your state. They're growing things locally, and the things that are growing locally, like vegetable transplants, are all varieties that do well in our area, rather than Home Depot, we have a regional distribution center in, I don't know, Ohio or whatever, and that they're buying, millions of plants from a greenhouse in Ohio, so they're producing all of their stuff at a different time than we are.
Yeah, and it might not mesh well with our climate.
Right, and the varieties aren't adapted to our climate or have proven in our climate.
I think Houston, and it's not like we have 4 real seasons here.
No.
It's like 100 degrees all year long, and then you get 2 months of sleet and hail and bullshit weather off and on.
Yeah.
That being said, what actually, I know, and when I was doing some of the prep and stuff, I was seeing what grew at different times of the year. What makes certain vegetables or fruits seasonal to where they can only grow during certain months? It's apples. You grow them in June or whatever it is.
They're harvested in June. They're actually growing and ripening all year. So they'll set fruit at spring, and then, they'll set fruit. I forget exactly the timing on apples because there's only a few varieties that work here very well.
What makes it happen on that month or during that day? Is it from the time you plant it, or can you plant it whenever you want, or that's just strategically with the moon cycles, the weather?
It all goes. I mean, there's all of those things are things that can be done, that are done, but it all goes down to timing and knowing historical data of what works well and when it's planted and all of that stuff that's been recorded.
So it's just data over the last 100, 200, or however many years. It's like the shit performed best here, so continue to go in that direction.
Yep. And then, I mean, even longer than that, but a lot of the stuff that we eat now is regionalized. Like carrots were originally from Germany and that region over there, and then as we spread out as people, we started trading seeds and finding different climates that were similar. Like a lot of the Asian greens that do well in Southeast Asia do well here in our summers because it's like fucking Cambodia at summertime here. Yeah. So we get that. And
so that's the reason why they taught us about trade in the 4th grade, was talking about the seeds going back and forth and the pilgrims, and
that's what food rules the world, man.
I'm making shit up, but yeah.
I mean, when you boil it down, and that's kind of what brought me to gardening. I mean, aside from something to do and go to learn something while I was in prison, but what brought me back to it and things like that is I love food. I mean, I love to eat. I love to cook, and
well, it's not a dying industry. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, everybody has to eat at least once a day.
Yeah, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, so
you're in a damn good industry.
Yeah, and things are changing with the way that not only that people are getting their food, but looking at their food and the way that they're looking at how their food helps them or hurts them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all the old ways of food has been killing people for years, and I think, the world is finally starting to come around and start realizing how important. I mean, that's why you're seeing organic and no GMOs and everything else all over the place.
People have been killing themselves with food for years. It wasn't the food.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, obviously, yeah.
I mean, the last people that killed themselves with food are the ones that were figuring out if we could eat that shit or not.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So to get one of the planters, what are they? I've seen some of them online. They're 4 feet by 6 feet or so.
We have varying sizes. We're redoing our DIY kits, so we offer a couple of different varieties of do-it-yourself kits if you want to go pick one up, or we can deliver one to you. The lion's share of our stuff is custom work, though. People that want to integrate gardening into their backyard. It's funny, I have not met a person that I've talked to in a client or a new prospect and service provider aspect that doesn't have a story of a grandparent or a great grandparent or a great uncle or somebody around in the family that had this great big garden when they were kids, and they used to run around in the summer eating tomatoes.
That's cool.
But if you listen to some of the words there, it was great grandfather or great, it skipped that whole generation to where, our parents, I'm 42, I'll be 42 next month. Our parents were, following what they were supposed to be doing, being, good kids, go to college, get a degree, go to work in the city. But what happened in that time is everybody migrated away from the rural life and away from the farm, because farm life is hard.
And then grocery stores were developed.
It's hard as shit, and grocery stores were developed, and people, started moving into suburban areas and filling cities. But in that time, the migration from the farm to the colleges was intensifying, but the number of people returning back to the farms from the colleges wasn't reciprocal at all. So, like, currently the average age of the farmers of American farmers, like 63 years old.
Today is 63.
At least it was a few years ago. I'm sure with the...
Well, that's what I mean in the last couple of years.
Well, within the last 5. I haven't done a lot of data research.
Close enough. I just meant not 10, 20 years ago.
But there is a resurgence of smaller local farmers that are...
And I'm seeing a lot of that out there. They're thriving.
They're not just they're thriving. I mean, there's some of them that have, multi-million-dollar business coaching programs online that they're killing it with as well.
Yeah.
But they're taking a different approach in a smaller scale, but they're paying attention to the soil and what they're doing and how they're interacting with nature and the soil and pollinators, and regenerative agriculture is one of the things that's going to be changing kind of how and where we're getting our food.
Yeah. Well, I like the self-sufficiency. Let's get into the economics of it. What does it cost to buy one of these from you? Just one of the standard ones. If I want to have a 6 by 8 foot garden and be able to plant some vegetables and fruits. The
kits start at $225, and then they go up from there. They're made with our base material on our boxes for the DIY kits is going to be a 2 by 6 cedar that we've milled down to make it pretty. We run it through a natural sealing process. So when you get it, you just put it together. There's no tools involved. You fill it up with soil from a local provider, and you're good to go.
So a couple $100.
$200, and then maybe, depending on the size of the box, anywhere from 70 to 125 in soil, and then whatever you dump at the nursery on plants and seeds. And
do you charge any type of reoccurring or monthly fee to come out and maintenance and train? And
for the DIY kits, no, we will set up some training programs. What I'd really like to do in the next year is have a place where we could bring people, and we've got test gardens, and that's kind of that whole overhead column that I told you I was missing. That's in there now, and that's what I'm building toward in the next year, is that I have that place where I don't have to hear it from my wife about not having the garage anymore, because I've taken it over with cedar and tools and everything else.
I've had that same argument.
Yeah. I'm sure it's repeated all over the place as people are growing through their business.
So if I've got a garden in my backyard, how much space am I going to need if I wanted to be able to provide fruit and vegetables for my family for the year? How much space would I be allocating a family of 2 or 3?
That needs a little more explanation and definition. Like, how are you not going to go to the produce section at your grocery store, or are you?
Yeah, let's say I want to be self-sufficient for fruits and vegetables, and just, I'm not a vegan. Well, I got a couple of them in the family, so I guess that is an open-ended question.
Really, the more space you can dedicate to it, the better, and using different methods, not just raised beds, but building up your soil to raise the earth around you, so you've got different elevations going. Then there's different ways, like permaculture and things like that are more like set it and almost forget it, with very little input and very little help over time. They kind of create their own systems, but For production, I would go inside the raised bed area, and man, I can't put a
number to it.
Yeah, because you'd be surprised at what you can.
I'm sure there's
get
so
out
many
of
different
16 square
variations.
feet. You know, I mean, I've got a 4x4 planter that, I mean, throughout the year in different seasons and different things that I plant in there, I get probably 60 pounds of lettuce and greens through the cooler months, and then another 10 or 12 pounds of kohlrabi, which is a fun cousin of broccoli, but you eat the stem, not the florets.
Mm-hmm.
There's just all kinds of different stuff that you can mess around with timing and planting certain things underneath certain things as they're growing. It's called succession planting. So, I mean, there's so many different methods that you can combine, and that we do combine for our clients that
would yield different results depending on what you're growing.
They eat year round. So, I mean, I try to give a range of anywhere from 2 to 4 pounds per square foot, depending on
well, that's a good number to go off of.
On your level of
consumption,
knowledge, and activity in the garden. Because, I mean, the best thing for a garden is a gardener's shadow. I mean, you can fertilize all you want, you can spray on a regular basis, but if you're just doing those things like a robot, you're not out there seeing what's going on in the garden. You're not interacting with it. You're not harvesting things as they need to be harvested. They're just kind of sitting there and waiting. So,
what in this Texas environment grows year round? Does anything grow year round?
Yeah, arugula, but
grass.
Not even grass. Grass goes dormant in
the winter.
But even so, again, it goes back to having historical data and knowing when to plant certain things. So there's always something in the ground in our climate year round. So in the blasted heat of summer, I always take over beds with sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes, they take all summer to grow, and they vine out, very little input, meaning labor input from you. And one thing that a lot of people don't really know is that you can eat the leaves of the sweet potato vines. They call it sweet potato spinach, and it's freaking delicious.
That's cool.
Yeah, and it's high in magnesium. Everything that you have in a sweet potato, minus the all of the fiber, all of the magnesium and the vitamin A and everything inside of a sweet potato is condensed into the leaf.
What are some of your favorite things to grow?
Like I said, kohlrabi. I love to grow tomatoes. My favorite thing to grow is probably super hot peppers, though. So
that'd be cool.
The holy trinity.
Habanero.
Habanero is
that considered hot?
That was one of the original super hots.
Okay.
But now, since people have started,
adopting it,
and then they hybridize and crossbreed things from around the world and get these crazy things. So the scorpion pepper, right now there's the current champ in the world is the Carolina Reaper. I've had mild success growing those. I have ghost peppers.
When you say champ in the world, does that mean the hottest?
Yeah, it's the hottest pepper in the world. I think it's like 3 million Scoville units.
I don't know what that means, but that sounds scary.
It's how they measure the heat in a pepper.
I figured that out, but that still sounds scary as shit.
Like you're
because I know the ghost pepper is hot. My boy Jeremy gave me like one dot fucking with me one time. We're in Dallas, and I couldn't breathe for like an hour.
Oh yeah, then you'd probably want to go to the hospital if you ate a Carolina Reaper. I eat hot peppers on a regular basis. Not like I'm a badass or anything. I just eat them on a regular basis. I make hot sauce with the stuff. But I ate a Carolina Reaper, and I really thought I was gonna fucking die. I mean, I felt like my stomach lining was melting. And
dude,
what did
you do? Did you go to the hospital or what?
Well, no, there's no need to go to the hospital. It passes, but I should have. I knew I was going to eat it because I ate it and put it on my YouTube channel, but then I was swearing like a sailor, so I couldn't really put it up there. I couldn't keep it up there.
You should have. That would have gone viral.
Yeah, probably.
Let's do it again. I'll record it.
All right. Well, I'll punish myself for the thumb.
You down to film this one, Hector? I'll pay for it. Let's do it.
Anything for that thumbs up, right?
Hey, anything, right? That'll go viral for sure. So with the gardens out there, and I'm assuming it's all about being organic and no pesticides and fertilizer and all the bullshit. How do you keep bugs out of it?
You don't. They're going to come. You just have to have healthy soil that keeps your plants healthy, and then address individual issues as they arise. And again, it goes back to what I said a minute ago. The gardener's shadow is the best thing for the garden,
And when you say a gardener's shadow, you mean basically get your ass
out there and get your hands dirty. You know? I mean, you're not going to learn anything unless you fucking do it. Yeah. And you'll just like anything else. You know?
Sure.
The more you do it, okay, I can give everybody a blanket pass on starting gardening or even landscaping or even plant loving, whatever. You're going to fucking kill some plants. I promise.
Yeah. Same thing with a fish tank.
It's going to happen.
Shit's going to die.
It's going to happen. Just stick with the small creatures, and as long as your kids are okay, then you're good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just how it works. That's how you learn with the plants. I mean, you're not out there all the time, and a lot of times people just they tend to love them to death. They overwater, overfeed, whatever.
Yeah. Well, and I guess you can start as a hobbyist, just kind of get your feet wet and then start playing around with it. I mean, what do you spend? You're out there on a daily basis as a hobbyist or as somebody who's growing all their own stuff and actually living off of it? Are they out there daily, weekly? What type of time commitment for people that they're intrigued by this, they want to get their garden? For the people watching,
so for the bunker type that want to be out there and growing all their own stuff, you do have to have a plan in action, and you have to, I would phase, if you're taking over your whole property, doing it yourself, I would phase it in and have a cohesive plan for the end with, hence landscape design. Have a cohesive plan for the end and then work towards that so you're not overwhelmed. Because I can come in and redo your entire yard to produce food on every square inch, but if you don't know what the hell you're doing and you've never done it before,
sure,
you're not going to know the difference between, sprouts for radishes or collard greens or tomatoes versus peppers or any of that shit. So,
or alive or dead.
Well, they tell you pretty quick.
Yeah, true. But I wouldn't know if something's yellow or if it's supposed to be yellow.
Right.
That'd be my problem.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that shit's dying. No, it's perfect. It's ready to eat. It's edible. When you see stuff like at the store, you're obviously familiar with what's organic, what's not, all the shit that's going into it, the pesticides. When you see stuff at the store and it's regular versus organic, the organic section that you're paying triple for and the fruit section, vegetable section, whatever the fuck it's called, I don't go grocery shopping.
Produce.
There you go. See, I told you I was a high school dropout.
I'm a fucking expert, man. I told you.
Oh, good. I'm glad I got you backing me up. In the produce section, when you see shit that says organic and it costs 3-4 times what the regular stuff does, do you know what percentage organic that really is? Is it still full of shit? Or is it legit mostly organic?
In order to be at the grocery store, it has to be certified organic. And, as a legit grocery store. I mean, you might have some place that's trying to pull
some knockoff shit.
Yeah, pull some stunts and make a couple extra bucks, but they're not really in a demographic that's paying attention to that shit. Honestly, our whole food supply chain is 60 plus years old. We're relying on this. It's the same way that it's been since the 60s. You got farms in the Midwest that are growing the majority of everything, grain and staple wise, and then you've got a lot of your seasonal produce that's growing year round, balls to the wall in California. And for the produce in your produce section, it's probably traveled more this week than you have. Most of it's 1,800 miles from home. On average. Do
you see that ecosystem or landscape changing at all in the near future, next 5, 10, 20 years? It's been the same for the last 60 years. Is there anything?
It's changing on more of a grassroots level, organically, so to speak. I told you there's a bunch of puns. So it's changing organically, actually, like those smaller scale farmers, and they're pushing out the old way of factory farm where you've got 10,000 acres of monoculture and it's all one crop, and they're not doing shit in between the seasons. They're not doing anything in between the seasons. They're not doing anything to the soil except depleting it by crop dusting it or crop spraying with airplanes to put chemicals, pesticides, herbicides, everything on it, and they haven't done anything to regenerate the soil. So soil is a living, breathing thing, and if you take from it and don't feed it, it's gonna die. So
I didn't know that soil is breathing and living like plants.
There's more organisms in a tablespoon of soil than there are humans on planet.
Damn, that's crazy.
Yeah, and it's insane, and it's all wrapped around fungal activity and bacterial cultures and everything else, and they have their own ecology. Your forest floor is its own world. And granted, when we get into the city like this, most of the landscapes, they're not lush, they're all pushed.
Sure.
They're all pushed and they're maintained, quote unquote, to look that way, but they're not properly treated to stay that way or do anything for us. There's things in the lawn care industry that I see that we could, if you could implement and sell it to 20% of the houses in Houston, we can actually start to reduce floodwaters because our soil will retain water again rather than just the clay.
All the clay
always being
saturated in there.
And we don't dry out until we're in a drought situation. So, I mean, there's things to regenerate your soil. If you just hell bent on keeping your lawn and not doing anything, productive with it, then there's compost top dressing and core aeration are the two easiest, most basic things you can do to your lawn, and that will feed the soil under the lawn for the next 4 to 6 months. I would recommend to do it 3 times here. I'm not a turf expert at all,
Sure.
but that's one of the things I see that could actually help us in the long run.
And also help with the
yard.
floodwaters.
Yeah.
Because it's going to suck up the water instead of it just hitting clay, flying right by it.
Yep. Have you ever seen, say it's like the pathways around a building like this? The building, I don't know about this one because I ran from the parking lot because I was running late from traffic, but pathways and things
Sure.
like that where soil is compacted and then the dirt around it is just dirt. It's dead. It's hard. There's really just grass growing over it. It's not growing out of it.
Yeah.
Versus soil that's like in a vegetable garden or in a planter. It's all
It's just
light
lush.
and fluffy.
Yeah.
And it's alive.
Sure.
It's a living, breathing thing.
What's in the future for urban organics?
For urban organics, to double down on teaching people how to grow food, and creating awesome spaces to do so. But I'd really like to branch out into some more food production type things. Small acreage farming, working with different groups, organizations. What I'm working with a school district locally, we're slowly implementing a long-term plan to bring small-scale farming into the curriculum.
That's cool.
Hands-on learning kind of a thing. And
That's amazing. All right, so that's what the future is.
Well, that's part of it. I mean, teaching kids and getting kids closer to their food, and partnered with a buddy of mine who has a tie with the Bum Phillips Charities, and we're doing some veteran farming and things like that, and veteran farming training that's going to focus on kind of training up that new wave of farmers and indoor agriculture and regenerative agriculture and all that kind of stuff. So basically, I want to seed the green industry with people that are taught from an organic mindset.
I love it. It's gangster. Well, man, it's been a lot of knowledge dropped today, Corey.
I know, I'm like a fire hose sometimes.
Well, I appreciate you coming on the show.
Anytime, man. I was shocked that because we had never spoken before. You had made a comment on one of your Facebook pages, and I commented on there, and we started chatting, and not even really chatting. You were like, "Hey, man, sorry I didn't get back to you. Just come on my fucking show."
Yeah, it's
well, all right then.
Man, it's I'm born and raised in Houston, and we've chatted a little bit. It's for me, it's about giving back, and not that you need anything from me personally, but this is a platform where I feel like I have the opportunity to share it with other people.
No doubt.
And if people can come share their experiences, their business, for the audience who's aspiring entrepreneurs or they are entrepreneurs, if your story lends something to them, somebody that wants to get into the organic business, or bringing somebody like yourself or anybody else on the show to get them exposure here in Houston, that's what it's all about. Nobody, I don't come from shit. Nobody taught me this. Nobody gave me shit. I've had to figure it out myself over the last 40 fucking years.
Yeah.
And if I can build a platform where I can bring guests like you and that's dropping fucking bombs of knowledge on me, as well as our audience and the people following all fucking day long, brother. So I definitely appreciate you coming on the show. I want to get you back here in about 6 months to see how the journey's going.
Bet.
How can people find Urban Organics? How can they find you if they want to go ahead and get some gardens going?
The website is the easiest. It's urbanorganicsonline.com.
And we'll post that all in the descriptions and
Okay,
comments.
yeah. If you're gonna post all of that, I am gonna be doing a bunch more social stuff. I think we're gonna correlate another visit to the Houston Life TV show with a live tomato thing later.
Oh, real cool.
We'll do a show on Wednesday and probably at a local nursery do some class stuff on the following Saturday. That's coming up. I've got to find a nursery that wants to let me in and play in their playground.
Cool. Well, if you're a nursery out there listening to this, or you know somebody that has a nursery.
Oh, I've got them.
Okay, well, shit, never mind.
But anybody that wants to reach out or share any business knowledge or hey, some benevolent investors, I could use one of those.
I could too.
I got some big plans to take over a niche industry. So
Hey, it's definitely niche, and I'm glad that you're doing it. The city needs it.
I appreciate it.
Corey McMullen.
It's coming.
Urban. It's there. All the contact information's below. Go to urbanorganicsonline.com. I'm Jonathan Weisman. This is the Grit Houston Entrepreneurs Podcast. Appreciate y'all tuning in. We'll see you on the next one. Take care, guys.